What's happening, VC? Erik the Viking here again, bringing to you the second part of my American Psych video. Yeah, basically I couldn't fit it all in two parts. I was going to do the second part last night, but I didn't have time. Just got back from work, gonna go out soon, but I thought I'd just get it done because it feels like it's incomplete to me. So yeah, thanks for the comments so far, guys. Sounds like you're enjoying what I'm showing, and you've obviously all got the same taste as me, which is great. So I'm going to carry on from the letter N, starting of course with Nazz, which is what you hear in the background. Big Todd Rundgren fan, as you probably guessed from one of my recent videos when I showed The Wizard a True Star. This is the first thing Todd put down on vinyl, basically, the first Nazz album. That's Todd there, of course. This is the first pressing on Screen Gems, which was distributed by Atco. I'll show you the label, it's just beautiful. There you go, that's that. I also have the second and third album too, which are really good. I've got the second one on red vinyl, which I could show at some point. I think I'm going to put together a Todd video at some point. If there's a major demand for that, let me know, guys, because I've got a lot of decent Todd stuff. So yeah, classic album. It's a brilliant Psych garage album. The next one is not necessarily a Psych record, but I always sort of drop it in that category because it came out around that time, and I'm a massive fan. Laura Nero, ladies and gentlemen. This is her second album, Eli and the 13th Confession. My favourite album of hers, just a masterpiece. Yeah, musically it's got jazz in there, soul. There are some Psych elements in there too. This album's just an absolute stone cold classic, and it's beautiful. And she was beautiful as well. Rest in peace, Laura. She made some great albums, man. They're all good, but this is for me is the standout. If you want an introduction to Laura, check out Stone Soul Picnic, which she wrote. She was more known as a songwriter than anything. Of course, that became a big hit for several people. Fifth Dimension and Eli's Coming, which is brilliant as well, which Three Dog Night did badly, in my opinion. Sorry, guys. And Poverty Train, which was the first track I heard, which is the one that completely blew my mind. It's just superb. And she was at Monterey Pop as well. So, guys, check out that album. Another classic, Quicksilver Messenger Service. Brilliant band. Happy Trails, the second album. This is my favourite, probably one of my favourite American Psych albums. It's just brilliant. I mean, obviously this has got a massive blues influence in it because of the 25-minute live version of Who Do You Love, but it's definitely a Psych record. It's an original English one. Awesome album, man. Really good. I love the first album too, and What About Me is a really good album, but this is the one that got me into them, and this is the one that really stands out for me. Going to show two albums by these guys just because I love them and not enough people seem to know about them. I'm sure most of you guys do. Red Crayola. Now, these got quite big during the post-punk no-wave phase because Mayo Thompson, who was the guitarist and vocalist for this band, later joined Perry Ubu, and Red Krayola sort of came back in the late 70s and definitely fit more in with the post-punk crowd. But their first album here, which you see here, The Parable of Arable Land, is a Psych classic. You can tell just from the cover that you're in for a good treat, man. I mean, it's just a crazy album. It's very experimental. I mean, they were one of those guys that were art students, saw their band as more of an art project than a music thing. Allegedly, their live performances were just a lot of feedback and noise. They hardly ever played songs, usually drove people away. You know, I would love to have seen them. Yeah, this is the Parable of Arable Land, which has got 6 tracks on it in total, which are all have what are called free-form freakouts in between. Which is basically, that was a massive thing they held, where they had loads of people come into the studio and just make noise. You can hear chainsaws in there, you know, obviously there's instruments, loads of weird noises. Definitely influenced by the Mother's Freak Out album in that aspect. And it's good the way they've kind of sieged everything in. There's like 2 minutes of it in between each track, so there's more of the freeform freakout than there is of the songs themselves. Now, this is a UK pressing on Radar. It originally was on International Artists in the States only. Texas label that 34 Elevators were also on, owned by Leyland Rogers. I regrettably had an original with those and sold it. I basically sold it because this is the first English pressing from the late 70s, and it is a much better pressing. And I've got a shitload of money for the original. Maybe I should have kept it, but I've kind of gone through the phase of keeping doubles and shit because they take up too much room. But you know, it's just a great album, and you know, you're getting the same thing with this. It's just a glossier cover, thinner vinyl. Yeah, I'm not going to delve too much into it because I'll probably get upset. But yeah, really cool album. And then they sort of blew everyone's minds further by releasing God Bless the Red Crayola and All Who Sail With It. This does not at all sound like it was made in 1968. This just is completely... This sounds like it was made today by sort of one of those experimental bands. Really minimal album. Apparently the second album, the proper second album, International Artists refused to release, which got released in the 90s on Drag City, called Coconut Hotel, which is a sort of concept album of sorts. There's 30 tracks that are called 1 second pieces, which is exactly what they say they are. They're more like 2 or 3 seconds each. Just piano, drums and trumpet. There's one of those on this album. The rest of the album was pretty much an organ solo, a guitar solo, a vocal solo and a drum solo. I think that's it. Not easy to listen to, really. I definitely prefer what they chose to release instead. And it's all from the same sessions, but these are the songs from those sessions, if you can call them songs. There's about 18 tracks on this album. They're all pretty short, very minimal. Mayo also sometimes takes to singing in a sort of British accent like Arthur Lee did. Gives it a very interesting vibe. I mean, as you can see, this is the Radar one again. I did have an original of this too. But I hear these Radar ones are pretty rare too, because I think these were released around the time that Radar was going bust. So they're still hard to find, and they're really nice pressings. I mean, these two albums side by side are completely different. They could easily be by different bands, but they're not. And you can see how these guys definitely, especially this album, had a big influence on the whole post-punk thing. Highly recommend. Another classic, which I've shown before, Sill Grapples. Absolutely, wow. I don't know what to say about this, man. I mean, I've been a fan of these guys for a long time. They only actually made 2 albums at the time. There was one that came out in the 90s of unreleased stuff, which is also good. But this is the first album, the only one I have. I've got the third one as well, with the beautiful mirror sleeve and the poster, which folds out here. I got this quite a long time ago now. You can see all this shit that's going on here, right? That is Simeon. I can't remember his surname. That's Dan Taylor, the drummer. Just the 2 of them. Yeah, Simeon basically built his own sort of early synthesizer out of oscillators, the odd keyboard, and mainly just oscillators and tone generators, and somehow built this massive monster machine thing that he called the Simeon, which you can see is credited there. And this album's from 1968, and it could easily be today. I mean, you know, there's a lot of bands that definitely owe these guys a lot of credit, and they do get the credit they deserve nowadays, thankfully. They didn't then, of course. But yeah, I mean, it's just great. And you know, from what I've said, it sounds like it'd be a load of noise, but they're actual songs. The drums are funky as hell. The vocals are awesome. The lyrics are fucking weird, but perfect for their time. It's an original pressing on Cap. The second album's just as good too. This one, the production is a bit more low budget, which I like. Obviously, because they probably had a smaller budget when they made it. But just the sleeve. I mean, that must have cost a lot of money to make back then. Yeah, what else do I say? I mean, there's photos of the guy playing this thing live, and apparently he used to operate with his feet, with his elbows, with his hands, while singing live, which is just incredible. That's multitasking at its best, definitely. That's a big fuck you for people that say that men can't multitask. Another classic, Jeff Simmons. This was featured in my Straight Label video. As you probably know, I'm a big Zappa fan, which was how I came to discover Jeff Simmons. Now, Jeff was in the Mothers in 1970 and was on the Chungo's Revenge album. And yeah, that's it. He left during the making of 200 Motels. And this is his first proper solo album. The one he did before this on Straight was a soundtrack to a film called Naked Angels. But this is the original UK Straight. Beautiful label. Very rare. I haven't seen one since. Anyway, I guess I should tell my story about Jeff Simmons. I don't know if I told it in the other video, because it was one of my earlier videos and I didn't know you all that well. I know Jeff quite well. I don't know if I should be saying this. I doubt he'll watch this. November 2010 at the Roundhouse in Camden in London, there was a Frank Zappa festival, which for me was like, wow, the best thing ever. It was just incredible. I still, you know, I'm waiting for them to do another one. Apparently they will be. It was a 3-day thing, you know, like a festival. Obviously you didn't stay overnight, because it was indoors. But cut a long story short, me and my girlfriend and my friend Simon couldn't get tickets. They were very expensive, and it sold out like that, you know. Just goes, which is great to show how many people are still into Frank. So obviously I panicked, looked on eBay, nothing, couldn't find anything. So we thought, fuck it, let's just go down there, see if there's touts down there. For those of you who don't know, touts are, they're the guys that hang around outside the venue selling tickets. They shouldn't be, but people do it. Anyway, there was no touts, so it was obvious that everyone that was coming to this thing didn't buy their ticket, you know, obviously really wanted to go, weren't buying tickets in bulk to sell or whatever. So, you know, they had it set up in the Roundhouse. There was a little gallery with some really nice pictures, which was free. You could walk around and look at that, which we did. And then I said to Sammy, well, I guess that's it, you know. And then I thought, fuck it, let's go ask at the desk, see if they got any more tickets. They didn't. This guy comes up to me, and he's the spitting image of the Big Lebowski. Not wearing a dressing gown, but he's got the beard. Looks like an older version of me, basically. And he's got this big sort of kind of Jamaican hat on. And I've got the Freak Out t-shirt on, and he says, hey man, I like your t-shirt. And I looked at him, and I sort of stopped. And he went, I'm Jeff. And I knew he was going to be there. He was scheduled to be there playing with Dweezil Zappa's band and doing a talk and stuff. And my reaction was just go, you're Jeff Simmons. And, you know, I literally was like, you know, like a child. I was just like, oh my God, you're Jeff Simmons. And I think he was quite taken aback by this. And I just started blurting out about how I was a fan, not just of Zappa, but I love this album. This is one of my top Psych albums, by the way. This is just phenomenal. I'll talk about this album again in a minute. You know, I blurted it out. I said, oh my God, I love your music, blah, blah. Expecting him to be sort of scared. He goes, hey man, let's go get a drink, let's hang out. I apologise for my really bad American accent. So me and Sammy, my girlfriend, and my friend Simon were like, yeah, awesome. So we went into the VIP bar with Jeff. It gets better. Met Gail Zappa, she was there. Dweezil wasn't there at that time. Met Moon Unit and Diva, all awesome people. Don't care what people say about Gail, she was nice enough to us. We said hello, you know, not too much. Sat down with Jeff, got free drinks and things. Didn't get pissed or anything. This was the first night for the thing. There was nothing really on that night. It was just a sort of opening thing. So Jeff was talking to us about everything, what he'd been up to. He's been playing with Shuggy Otis and things like that, which is awesome. And he was sort of you know, just telling us all these stories, and I still can't really remember a lot of it because I was just in awe, you know. I was nervous, you know. It was like, this is a guy whose album I've been into for years now, you know. And let's be honest, Jeff kind of disappeared for a while. You know, he didn't do much after the Zappa. He released an album in the 90s on a tiny label, which I bought off him that weekend, which is good actually. Blue Universe, it's on his website, Blue Fox Records. So anyway, yeah, so, you know, Jeff is literally the spitting image of the Big Lebowski. He talks like him, you know, he likes to smoke, awesome guy, you know. I was glad to say I had a smoke with him later in the weekend as well, which was interesting. Yeah, it was awesome. So anyway, he said, I've got to go back to my hotel. He was where was he staying? I can't remember. It wasn't too far though. It was a nice hotel, paid for by the Roundhouse. He said, here, I'll give you my hotel extension. I was like, okay. I said, well, we can't come back. We don't have tickets, you know. He said, oh, don't worry about that, man. Just come. I'll get you in for everything. We're like, what, really? He goes, yeah, man, it's fine. I can get you in. We're like, okay. Wow, thank you. So we got in for the whole thing for free. And not only that, we got VIP passes. So we were in the VIP bar and, you know, I met Scott Tunis as well. Another Zappa bassist. Didn't get to meet too many other people, but you know, didn't get to go proper backstage really, because I wanted to be there in the crowd for the shows and that. But it was just one of the best weekends of my life. And after that, Jeff was here for 2 weeks in London. He hadn't been here since 1970, so he was loving it. You know, tried buying weed off someone and got ripped off. Yeah, I think it was oregano or something. Yeah, which was when we told him you should never buy weed off people in Camden, because it's quite famous for that. Anyway, the weekend's coming to an end. We're having a drink with Jeff. It's the last night, you know, we're a bit drunk. Get a lift home off this awesome guy who was driving our way. He also gave Jeff a lift to the hotel, who's, I think he's written a book on Zappa. His name's Deepinder. Awesome guy. Anyway, so Jeff says, he said to us on the first night that he'd like to play music with me and Simon, because me and Simon were in a band at the time. And, you know, we sort of just thought, he's just saying that, he's not really going to want to play music with us. Anyway, I give him my number, and he keeps introducing us to people at the festival as his band, you know, and we just thought it was a running joke. We're like, yeah, cool, you know, we wish. Anyway, he ends up calling me on the Monday. The festival finished on a Sunday. He said, right, when are we going to go for this jam? I'm like, what? Are you kidding? So yeah, on the Friday, we went to, Jeff came and met us down here where we live, which we didn't have to do. We would have gone to London somewhere. Went to the local studio that we knew and had a jam with him, and I recorded it as well. I've got it on tape, which I'm keeping to myself, you know, because out of respect for Jeff. To be honest, it was pretty shoddy. We were all you know, having a drink and stuff, and it's just a good time, man. It's good to record it. But he's still talking about coming over here again. He loved it here, and he loved the appreciation he got. And at one point, he was so overwhelmed by everything going on at the festival, he actually freaked out and went back to his hotel room when he was due on stage in a few hours. And the manager of the stage manager was asking me where Jeff was, because he knew that we were hanging out with him. So I had to call Jeff up and get him to come back, which sounds really big-headed, but that's what happened. He just got a bit upset about Frank and, you know, and things like that. But anyway, he's working on a new album. I can't say too much about it for obvious reasons. With another ex-member of the Mothers, which I also can't mention. He's also in close contact with Ray Collins as well, who's been absent from the scene generally since the late 60s. He was the original lead singer for the Mothers, and so that's awesome to hear that he's still around. He lives in a trailer somewhere, not far from Jeff. Anyway, Jeff lives in Seattle, and me and Sammy are meant to be going to stay with him at some point when we can get the money. Don't know if that'll actually happen, but yeah. Anyway, I've talked about Jeff long enough. Yeah, awesome storyline. But back to the album. Yeah, awesome album, man. It really is a psychedelic classic, and it is a lost psychedelic classic because it didn't sell. It's just brilliant. Jeff was, I think, 19 or 20 when he played this, and he sort of dismisses this album now. You know, like all musicians, you move on, you sort of forget what you've done. Well, I don't know if all musicians do that, not forget, but, you know, what's in the past is in the past. I'm certainly like that. I don't know if the rest of you are. But, no, it's a great album, and Frank is on this as well, playing guitar on 2 of the tracks, and he produced it. Of course, he's under the pseudonym of Lamar Brewster. But no, it really is a great album, and I think it has now been reissued on vinyl and CD. So guys, if you can't get the original, You've got to snap one of these up, man, before it just disappears again, because it's just brilliant. So seriously, I only bought it because it was on Straight, but this is definitely one of my favourite albums on Straight, after like Troutmask Replica and Star Sailor. Okay, moving on. Simon and Garfunkel. Forget Bridge Over Troubled Water. Obviously, it's not a Psych album. I'm not a big fan of that album anyway. But Bookends is a Psych album for sure, man. A great album, and it's got my favourite track of theirs on it, America. This is stereo pressing. Really nice album. It's all good, man. It's all kind of mixed together as well. It seeds in, and you got Mrs. Robinson on here, a classic. Save the Life of My Child. At the Zoo. Really awesome album. Yeah, seriously, good stuff. This is another one which gets me, because I first heard about Skip Spence, of course, through Moby Grape. No, I'm afraid this isn't an original. I would kill for an original, not literally. I would love to have one. This is an 80s pressing on Edsel, so still pretty old. I think this is 1988. It's still quite old. So it's, yeah. So this is amazing. I actually heard this before I heard Moby Grape. I think I'd always known about Omaha and Hey Grandma and stuff like that. But, you know, I started reading about Skip. And I think my dad borrowed this album on CD when it was reissued off one of his friends. And I recognised the cover. I mean, it's just an awesome photo. And I was about 10 years old. You know, I must have read about it in Mojo or something. And listened to it and was just blown away. Even now, this is one of my favourite albums. It's just incredible. I mean, the story is incredible enough. I mean, there's so many albums that have great stories. There's another one coming up which I'm going to show. But the fact that Skip, okay, he was pretty famous in Moby Grape, you know, and he was in Jefferson before that. He played drums in Jefferson. Did way too much acid, pretty much like Syd Barrett, but a bit worse, I believe. Attacked a band member on tour with a fire axe, got committed to Bellevue. A year later, came out of Bellevue, drove to Nashville on a motorcycle, allegedly in his pyjamas. I don't know if that's true. He'd written this album while in Bellevue and recorded it in about 4 days in Columbia Studios in Nashville. And he plays everything on it. He sings, plays guitars, bass, drums. It's a trippy album, man. And it's kind of like the Syd stuff. You can hear in some bits he's a bit wobbly, but it just works. You know, it's not like as crazy as Wild Man Fisher or something like that. These are proper songs, and it's just a phenomenal album. And you know, the sad thing about Skip is he never really recovered. You know, kind of like Syd, but I think Syd was, you know, he was happy being the way he was, whereas Skip just got more and more into heroin and coke and things like that. I think he joined Moby Grape again twice in the 70s and was fired both times. So I think sometimes he was okay and then he'd go back downhill again. And of course he died in the 90s of cancer after years of being in and out of care homes and being homeless and living in hostels and things. Really not a nice way to live, you know. And apparently just completely lost it in the end. It's just sad. Really sad. But, you know, he left behind this great album. And, guys, I'm sure most of you have this or have heard it. It is really phenomenal. Seriously. I can't say too much about it. It's an emotional album for me, man. This is why music's great. It makes us emotional, right? Don't worry, I'm not crying. Spirit. Great band, of course. Randy California was a legend. I love all their early albums, particularly The Family That Plays Together and Clear Spirit. And the first one, but this is the fourth one, the best one in my opinion, The 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus, absolute classic, and with a trippy sleeve to boot. I love the fact that they were unique in the fact that Ed Cassidy, the drummer, who was Randy California's stepfather, was like in his 40s then, which was quite unusual, you know, for bands. I mean, he was his stepdad as well. It was pretty unusual. He's still alive now, Ed Cassidy, great drummer. But, you know, this has got tracks on it like Animal Zoo, Mr. Skin, Street Worm, Lovers Found a Way, oh yeah, Space Child. Yeah, it's fucking great. 1970, and this was a charity shop find years ago. I'd never heard of Spirit at the time. I was quite young, and this is what got me into Spirit, man. This is just a great album. Now this is another one with a story attached to it. I'm going to try not to be too long, so I've got to go out, but I got this in the post today. Now this has only just been reissued. Big Star 1000 mentioned this in one of his videos, and then I remembered reading about it. I read about this in Word magazine, which is the new Mojo magazine in my opinion. Great magazine, British magazine. I'll show it to you. This is UFO by Jim Sullivan. This is not an original pressing. I got this in the mail today. Basically, oh man, where do I begin with this? Now, I discovered this album about a week ago. No, a week and a half ago through Big Star 1000's video. Checked out the songs on YouTube, which I advise any of you to do. Was completely blown away. And yeah, since I've heard this and had it on my iPod, which has been about a week, I had to download it, you know, and it's been on my iPod for about a week, and I've listened to it every day, and I've already learned all the words, and I've learned the songs on guitar. It is just an incredible album. It's folky Psych, right? But the thing with this is the Wrecking Crew are playing on this, and of course those guys played with Axelrod. This album is really funky as well, and it's, I mean, the original pressing just came in this single sleeve, and I think this was pasted on the front. There was nothing on the back apparently. That's worth a lot of money. I've only seen two that had sold before on Pop Psych, and I can't remember, they went for an awful lot of money. Anyway, they haven't come up for sale since this reissue has come out, and the popularity's gone up. It was issued again in 1970 on a bigger label, but they'd remixed it. It hasn't got the same oomph that this mix has. This reissue is from last year. 180 gram vinyl on Light in the Attic. Awesome label. They're bringing out some great stuff. Apparently they're reissuing Marcos Valle's stuff soon as well, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Anyway, there's a story behind this guy too. Jim Sullivan, from what people know, was a guy that was in with the in crowd but never got the respect he deserved. He wrote all the songs on this album. He made another album in '72, which is pretty shocking apparently. I can't say because I haven't heard it. 1969 this was released. It's a sad story. I mean, you guys should look it up because I can't say too much because I ain't got much time, but he basically disappeared in 1975 in the New Mexico desert. His body was never found. Some say he did a disappearing act, some say he may still be alive. This album's called UFO. Some say he was abducted by UFOs. His family believe he was abducted by UFOs. The creepy thing about the mystique behind this album and everything makes it more interesting. I've become obsessed with this album, seriously. The last week I've been reading everything I can about Jim Sullivan because the guy one of the guys that runs Light in the Attic went on a sort of quest to try and find out what he could. He went and met his wife or widow, his son, people that knew him, tried to track people down, tried to track down some of the Wrecking Crew. He tracked down Jimmy Bond, who was the bassist on this, who played with Spector and Axelrod, and he also did all the arrangements for this album. Sadly, according to the guy that did this, Jimmy Bond couldn't remember a thing. You know, he's very old, and I think he was sort of bedridden. But as soon as he played in the album, he remembered it, but he couldn't tell him anything, which is a story in itself. But the weird thing about this album is that a lot of the lyrics are about disappearing, you know, disappearing off the face of the earth and things like that. There's stories that apparently he was chatting with a friend, and his friend said to him, what would you do if you felt as if you'd lost everything? And he said, I'd just walk away into the desert and never come back. Things like that. It's strange. I mean, the story is, again, pressed for time here, the story is that, I might do a separate video for this, but there might not be much point now. The story is that he checked in, his family were living in California, him and his wife and his child, his son. I think they sort of broke up. He left, but he said if he made it big where he was going, he'd send for them. His plan was to go to Memphis, I think, to try and get big on the country scene. He got as far as New Mexico. Can't remember where in New Mexico now. Got pulled over by the police because apparently he'd been driving for 15 hours and was falling asleep at the wheel. They told him to stop at a motel, which he did, and they escorted him there. Apparently his car left the motel at 1 in the morning, and the police went to check the motel room the next day, which was locked from the inside. The key was on the bed apparently, nothing else was in the room. That's one story. And then his car was found 29 miles away or something by a ranch which apparently was owned by a family with mafia connections. That's one theory, he was killed by them, no one knows, for hassling them. All that was found was his car, his belongings were in his car, his clothes, a few copies of his second album, reel-to-reels, tapes, I think a bottle of vodka, things like that. But apparently he'd hit the bottom and things like that. But it's the fact that his clothes were in there, that's the weird thing. And the fact that his key was on the bed in the hotel room. He'd obviously climbed out the window. Now, it kind of sounds like he'd planned to do it, because one of the lyrics in the track, So Natural in this, is something like, I just want the wind to blow away my ashes. Oh, it's pretty strange, and that's 6 years before his disappearance. Now, Jim Sullivan may still be out there. He may be laughing at all the shit that's going on with this album right now, because it's definitely turned a few heads. It's definitely, I'm hooked on this album, man. This is definitely going up there in my top albums for me. Jim Sullivan Rant Over. Check out the Light in the Attic website, the whole story's on there. There's also listen to the tracks on YouTube, seriously. Next up, a classic, 13th Floor Elevators. Don't need to say much about this really. This is the Radar pressing again. I never had an original of this. I like that they've got the old International Artist logo there. Absolute classic. Rocky Erickson, of course, another troubled legend. My brother's girlfriend was lucky enough to see him live in London a few years ago. I would love to see him, and yeah, I mean, you can't argue with this album. This is my favourite album of theirs. It's just brilliant. I don't need to say much about that. Got two more. Another classic, West Coast Pop Art Experimental Band. This is my favourite album of theirs, the only one I have as well. Also featuring another troubled guy. I wouldn't say he was a legend. The second album and the first album are also great. Weird bunch of guys, man. I mean, with title tracks like Our Drummer Always Plays in the Nude, you can't go wrong with an album like this, man. I bought this because I liked their title, the West Coast Pop Art Experimental Band. How pretentious. Yeah, this album is just a classic. This is a second pressing here, but still an old one. I love this album. It's a really good Psych album. And the guy that sort of started the band up, Bob Markley, that's him there, was actually a lawyer who was in his 30s already. And apparently, according to the other band members, the real musicians and writers and singers, all Bob Markley did was play percussion, apparently. They also often would turn his mic off on stage because he'd do these weird rants and things. There's a couple of those on here. It's interesting stuff. Got quite a creepy voice. He was, you know, he liked the women and that sort of thing. He liked the lifestyle. He didn't really have much talent. And he was a good businessman, apparently. You know, he got them the record deal with Reprise and things like that. But they never got big. But, I mean, this album is generally regarded as their best. And, of course, Bob Markley, I mean, if you read on their tribute fan website, had a sad demise. According to Kim Fowley, he got in a lot of trouble over the years with police and with the family of girls that he'd be after, and yeah, pretty bad, like got beaten up pretty bad and things. And then in the 80s or sometime, he received a huge inheritance from his father that had passed on, who was a millionaire. But he looked terrible when Kim Fowley last saw him. He said he was like, couldn't really talk or anything. And then the next story is that he fell asleep on a boat which came away from its moorings, drifted away in the hot California sun, and was stranded in this boat for about 3-4 days, and suffered extreme dehydration, of course, and never recovered, was in a coma. He's presumed dead now, I think, because as far as anyone knows, no one was allowed to see him in the hospital. He had no immediate family, or no family as far as I know, and was just bled dry by the hospital with his money. A really sad story. I mean, you know, he wasn't, you know, as legendary as the other guys I'm talking about, but still, what a way to go. And last but not least, Neil Young. Everybody knows This Is Nowhere. I would have shown the first album too, but I don't have a copy. I'd love to get one, because that is a really good Psych album. I mean, I'd also class this as fairly psychedelic. It's sort of the tail end of that era. This is probably one of my favourite Neil Young albums, along with Gold Rush and On the Beach. I love Neil Young. This is a lovely original English pressing on the 3-colour label. Not seen very often these days. It's just a great album. I mean, how can you argue with songs like Cinnamon Girl? And of course Danny Whitten plays a big part on this album as well. There he is there. Rest in peace, Danny Whitten. Yeah, this is just a great album. But hey, you know, Tony will tell you, Fartboy, Mr. Fartboy, I know you're a big Neil Young fan. This album's heavy. Yeah. So that's my American Psych stuff, guys. I'm gonna have to go. I'm running late now. My friend is gonna kill me. I'm gonna be going to watch the football in the pub. I don't know why. I'm not even that into football, but hey. Yeah. So guys, thanks for watching again. I'll try and come back tomorrow with another video. Not sure what I'm going to post yet, but guys, as ever, thanks for your comments. You guys are awesome. Keep digging, keep grooving and everything. Peace. See you later.